How do you decide, and who is allowed to decide what you breed for? This is rather more difficult. Certainly the way Hitler did it, which was that the government decided what to breed for. You breed for tall, blonde, blue-eyed, so-called Aryans. I think, of course, everybody's going to object to that, but not everybody objects to the idea of parents themselves choosing the kind of genes they want for their child. I think there are great objections to that as well, and consequentialist moralists, intelligently designing moralists, should take account of them too. But it is worth remarking that it's not in principle very different from designing your children by education. Designing the genes of your child is different from designing your child by education, but it isn't obvious why one of them is laudable and the other one isn't. We have, of course, been doing positive eugenics in domestic animals and plants for millennia. We've been selecting cabbages and wheat plants and maize plants and racehorses and so on, dogs, for many, many centuries. We've been doing it with the natural selection, actually artificial selection part of the Darwinian equation, and in the future it may be possible to do the same thing with the mutation part of the Darwinian equation, that's to say, genetic manipulation. Finally, are religions themselves intelligently designed? Well, one or two of them definitely are. We know that L. Ron Hubbard designed Scientology, and we have his remarkably frank confession of why he did it. It was to make money. Possibly, we could say that Mormonism was intelligently designed by Joseph Smith. Joseph Smith, I don't know whether he was intelligent, he was an obvious charlatan. Actually, I think a convicted crook, wasn't he? And he did manage to persuade people. He must have had very great powers of persuasion, because he managed to persuade people that he had dug up some golden tablets with some funny writing on, which he was able to translate with the age of a magic stone in a hat. People believed that. And one of your presidential candidates today believes that. The fact that he invented it so recently enables us to make at least the probable case that it was a designed religion. It didn't just happen, it didn't just spontaneously spring into existence. The fact he was a charlatan is borne out, by the way, by the fact that he, although a 19th century man, translated the alleged tablets into 16th century English. Why would an honest person ever do a thing like that? One could make the case that Christianity was intelligently designed by St. Paul, and that's probably going back too far in history to be sure. If religions are not intelligently designed, might they come about by something like evolution, the way wings and hearts and eyes come into existence? Well, there are various kinds of evolutionary process that we might invoke. The standard Darwinian one involves the differential survival of genes, natural selection of genes, ordinary natural selection producing religiosity. And there have been arguments that religious people actually survive better than non-religious people. And it's not totally impossible that's true. It could be that psychosomatic diseases of stress, might be alleviated by religious belief. People who have religious belief might be less prone to, I don't know, duodenal ulcers or something of that sort. There's a very little evidence for that. It's not very persuasive. Another suggestion that's been made is group selection. Group selection is an idea that is pushed by some biologists who, in my opinion, don't really understand how natural selection works. But I haven't time to elaborate on that. It's not difficult to make a reasonably plausible case that some religions survive better than other religions because they have what it takes to survive. I mean, a religion that has a very warlike God that causes its followers to rampage around the world, conquering other people and forcing them to adopt their religion, which is how Islam got going, that such a religion might indeed have good survival value if you like to think of the unit of natural selection as being the whole religion. I don't think that's very close to a Darwinian process. I think that's rather more close to what biologists would call ecological succession. It's analogous to what happened when the grey squirrel was introduced from America into Britain and wiped out the red squirrel. There are a few redoubts of red squirrels still left, but it's the grey squirrel simply outcompeted them, and that's possible that's how religions displace other religions, but that doesn't seem to me to explain why individuals follow religions in the first place. If we're going to have a Darwinian view of religion, then I think the best, my favourite version of a Darwinian theory of how religions might actually evolve is that religious ideas themselves, what you might call memes, survive better in the population than other rival memes. So an idea like life after death might survive because it's attractive, because people like the idea, and people believe what they want to believe. That would be a mimetic theory of religion. And I think that's, if you must try to devise a Darwinian theory of the evolution of religion, that might be one way of doing it, the natural selection of ideas or memes within the population. But finally, coming back to gene selection, I think perhaps what we should think of is not that there's natural selection in favour of religiosity itself, as I did when I talked about duty and ulcers, but rather that natural selection might favour certain psychological predispositions, like, say, a tendency to obey authority. And the psychological predispositions manifest themselves in the form of religion under the appropriate cultural conditions. Well, I think I've been talking long enough, and I would like to stop now and take questions, so thank you very much indeed.